thank you to all of you for coming here today for our remembrance of Mary Turner. And it is my pleasure to introduce a few of our speakers in just a little bit, but first let me share my own stories a little bit. Growing up in Germany, I only learned about at the age of 14 about the Holocaust, about what happened in Germany during the 1930s and 1940s. I also learned that my grandfather on my mother's side, at some point in his life, transported people to concentration camps as he was by trade a locomotive engineer. Knowing all that, going to school to learn about it, visiting concentration camps, made me confront a part of my country's history that was painful and was uncomfortable. But it was an important decision by our teachers. It was an important situation for us teenagers to be exposed to so that we could learn about what happened in our wonderful country. We typically only connect with such entities as Bach and Beethoven, BMW, and maybe Bratwurst. Knowing and learning from that experience, it is clear to me that it is important for societies to come to terms with their own past, because it liberates them from the sins of their fathers and grandfathers and from those traumatic experiences that, whether you like it or not, transcend to the next generations, particularly if you're not confronting that reality, if you're not engaging in a meaningful process of truth-telling, of asking for forgiveness, of healing, and of finding that path to Martin Luther King's beloved community. And it is in that sense, in that context, that we here at Christ the King Episcopal Church, where we just dedicated our civil rights mural about 9 months ago, would like to, in whatever form or shape we can, embrace this process of truth-telling, of asking for forgiveness, of reaching out to all of brothers and sisters so that we may find a path forward. And we're here particularly today to honor and to remember Mary Turner. She was actually killed on May 19, 1918 by a lynch mob, and in such a fashion that I really do not want to talk about. We're actually not remembering May 19, but I'm remembering May 18, because that is the day when Mary Turner, only 19 years old, and being 8 months pregnant, had the courage to speak truth to power. It is that courage that we all need to embrace, to speak truth to power, to ask for forgiveness, to learn from our past mistakes so that we may move forward. So this is our remembrance of Mary Turner and everything that is connected with it, asking us to be courageous and asking us to find paths forward so we can all truly be God's children. Having said all that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who came up with this incredible design of the Mary Turner tree, a tree of life, a former student from VSU, Shay Clayton, who will tell you her personal story of how she arrived at the tree of life, Mary Turner's tree of life. All right, so Shay, your turn.
Hi everyone, I'm Shay. I'm one of the artists that got the opportunity to work on this mural. And I just kind of want to start off by just talking about how grateful I am that I had the opportunity to do something like this big. Honestly, like my job as an artist is to be a visual storyteller. And so with that came a lot of weight trying to tell the story and do it justice for Mary Turner, especially knowing like how awful the atrocities were surrounding that lynching rampage. So I wanted to paint her in a really good light. I wanted to paint her in a way that she deserved to be seen. And so throughout the design process, I played with like different concepts, different aspects, but really what truly stuck with me was a tree of life. Mary Turner was someone who was to bear her fruit and didn't get the opportunity to do that. I love trees. Trees provide shade, shelter, fruit, everything, oxygen. the very breath of life. That's what Mary Turner was.
Go nature.
Go nature. So, and honestly, I love the way that this turned out. It's different from the original design, but that's okay because art kind of took its own form. And I love the fact that it did that. I wanted outstretched arms because I wanted her to take up the space that she deserved to take up. Like, I wanted there to be limbs. I wanted there to be branches. She's done in grayscale like everyone else for stoicism, but I also realized in the process of making her, afterwards, that the arms that are holding her belly almost look like the arms of the man that she tried to defend. So, to pay homage to Hayes too. But, like, this was an absolutely great opportunity to work on this, to be able to, like, tell the story of Mary Turner in a way and to learn more about it. Like, this was a very educational and guided experience for me. And it's teaching me so much about my community, about so much work that we have left to do as a community. I want to continue to do work like this that helps bring truth to light. I want to be a part of the conversations that we need to have, those hard, necessary conversations, like, as a community. Like, it's about forgiveness, it's about accountability, it's about love. And we need to learn how to love each other more. And I wanted to paint her the way that I wanted her to be loved. So that's Mary Turner, that's my story about her, that's my experience and how I want to go forward and how I want to bear witness to things like this. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shay. Our next speaker is Reverend Susan Gage. She is a friend and also member of a group that is connected with the Episcopal Diocese of Georgia, Racial Justice Georgia. So, Susan, if you would please take the stage.
Thank you, Michael. And as Michael said, we are both members of Racial Justice Georgia, which is supposed to be a racial healing ministry of the Episcopal Diocese of Georgia. I want to just acknowledge again Shay's artwork, which is gorgeous and meaningful. I was listening to the radio the other day, and they were doing an interview with this singer, Judith Hill, who has a song called Dame de la Lumière. I'm not perfect with my French yet. But it's a song that was a tribute to her mother and her grandmother, and it was the refrain that really caught my attention, which was, bad times make for strong women. And when you think about it, that is true, so true. And that is what Mary Turner was about. She lived in serious bad times, and she was a strong woman. And what happened in her life, what happened to her husband, what happened to the other men, raised her up. It was not going to keep her silent. That was the purpose, was to silence everyone, but she was going to speak up. Now, she paid for that dearly, and in ways that are wrong, absolutely wrong. But I think about the story of Cain and Abel and how God heard Abel's blood calling up from the soil. And these roots to this tree are still calling up that voice for us to hear. And it's on us today to hear that voice, to give voice to that voice, and to make sure that we do not perpetuate these sins anymore. And that's what I take from the story of Mary Turner. It's so fascinating to me. I had never been much of a part of Valdosta, and yet I knew this story because she is written about in at least a couple of books, which were anti-death penalty books, which tells you that she's still making her voice heard in one way or another. So my call to all of us here is to be those strong women, even the men, you can be a strong woman too. Be that strong woman and give voice to these stories so that we do not forget and we do not repeat. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Gage, dear friend Susan. We have one more special guest, and it's an honor for me to introduce Mary Turner's great-granddaughter, Miss Aubrey Grant. And she will be representing the Mary Turner family, of course. So, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I just want to say I thank everyone and I appreciate you all coming out. This means so much to me, and it means a lot to my family. And I have some of my family here with me today. I have my daughter, Katrina Thomas, and I have my sister, Celeste Grant. Everyone knows the story that happened with Mary Turner. She was a woman that worked on a plantation along with her husband, Hazel Turner. Hazel Turner and some of his friends had gotten together, and one of the friends killed the plantation owner, Mr. Hampton Smith. After that happened, Mary was not happy about that. So what she did, she was denouncing what happened to her husband. After they lynched him, then they went to looking for Mary. Well, they found Mary. When they did find Mary Turner, which was my great-grandmother, her daughter was named Leicester Manning Grant, which was my father's mother. And she basically had a big hand in raising me. I was kind of raised by the family. My aunt, my grandmother, and my mother, and my father and my grandfather. So I'm kind of like, was raised by a village, if you want to say. But I appreciate that because I learned a lot during those years. And I didn't learn about this story about Mary Turner until I was actually an adult, because my grandmother didn't talk about it. She was only 7 years old when it happened, so she didn't know a lot about it. She was raised by one of her sisters, which was a member of the Godfrey family. And she was raised along with the Godfreys in their home. And she told me wonderful stories about the family, but she didn't know much about it because they kind of hid that away from her back in those days. Well, they took Mary down by the little bridge. It's between Hazel and Valdosta, out in that area. And they hung her up by her heels. And they poured oil and gasoline on her body. They took a knife, and one of the mob members cut the belly open, and the baby came out. She was still alive. The baby was still alive. The baby did a few cries, and one of the plantation owners, mob people, came and stomped the baby, and the baby did a few cries, and it was dead. They put Mary in a grave in the ground, I guess you would call it a grave, but it didn't have a tombstone, because they marked it with a cigar and a whiskey bottle. That was how Mary Turner and her unborn child was buried. Horrible. When I first really knew what happened, it broke my heart, and I almost got a mode of depression behind it. But then I got myself together, and I had the members of VSU, Dr. Mark George, now Dr. Michael Knoll, they all are assisting with carrying this out so that we can get some comfort and we can find justice. I just want to personally thank Dr. Knoll. He's asked me not to call him that, but he's earned that. The church here, Christ the King, Reverend Susan Gage, and I see one member that didn't show up, not here, I'm not sure, but we thank him anyway for his effort. And then I want to thank the artist, Miss Shay Clayton. What a wonderful job. I am so glad that Dr. Noel invited me here to look at this before I had a chance to come here for this gathering. It helped me a whole lot because I was able to stand there and look at that picture. And when I looked at that picture, I could see all the many hands that was holding and coming out in different places in that tree of life, if you want to put it that way. I saw the mother. I thought about, well, that's got to be her arm across like that. And those two arms at the bottom, I thought, that's God's arms. That's what come to my mind. It got really spiritual for me. Matter of fact, it brought the scripture of Galatians 5 that talks about the fruits of the Spirit. Some of the spirits that I saw was understanding, knowledge, wisdom, faith, love, righteousness, victory, and most of all, I saw peace. I really saw peace. With something that horrific, I saw peace. And that's what God does for us. He gives us peace. He gives us peace to carry on. He gives us peace to make justice happen. No one was ever charged for this, along with other 300 and so lynching victims that happened during that time. I had an uncle, one of my grandmother's brothers, my grandmother's brothers. She had stepbrothers, but she only had one biological brother from her mother. And he left here at an early age. Sad to say that he never could deal with the situation. He would come home and he could not stay long at all. My grandfather would have to take him back because he could not deal with the racial matters that existed down in the South. Even though he was from Miami, but there was a different world there. So he had not the issues that he had experienced at home. So he had trouble even visiting home. But he would write to my grandmother like every 3 or 4 months she got a letter and she let us read it to her. But I just want to say that I'm thankful and I'm grateful and I am so happy that I have participants and that we're going to continue what we're doing because we're doing a great work. And when I saw the pictures of all the individuals that has stood for justice, along with Dr. Noel's wife, she stood for justice. He said they were a group of troublemakers because they didn't take nothing off of nobody. They were able to get out there what they wanted people to hear. And I thank you all, and you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Ms. Audrey Grant. Thank you, Reverend Gage, and thank you, Shay Clayton. Let's all be good troublemakers, and let's find out how we can be good troublemakers by going inside and enjoying a little reception together. Thanks to all of you for showing up today. Thank you.